"Shoot the dogs." The command cut through the evening air so sharply that even the flashing patrol lights seemed to hesitate. Maya Brooks knelt on the damp asphalt of the grocery store parking lot, her hands resting calmly in front of her while red and blue reflections rippled across puddles left behind by a summer storm. Around her, 6 police officers formed a wide circle. Their radios crackled. Their boots shifted. Their attention stayed fixed on the 2 dark shapes racing across the far end of the lot. The dogs were coming fast, faster than anyone expected. A cold wind swept through the rows of parked cars, carrying the scent of rain and freshly cut grass from a nearby field. Maya closed her eyes for a brief second. Not out of fear, out of certainty. She knew those dogs. She knew every stride, every breath, every instinct guiding them through the darkness. 20 yards away, Officer Daniel Harper tightened his jaw. The veteran officer had spent 23 years on the force, and experience told him to expect the unexpected. Yet nothing about tonight made sense. 3 hours earlier, the case had looked simple. A missing 12-year-old girl. A witness statement. A suspicious vehicle. A woman who happened to be near the search zone. The evidence seemed straightforward enough to justify bringing Maya in for questioning. But now, under the spinning lights and the eyes of dozens of onlookers gathered behind police tape, certainty was beginning to crack. The K9s reached the edge of the parking lot. Several officers instinctively stepped backward. The dogs ignored them completely. They darted between patrol vehicles with astonishing focus, their paws splashing through shallow puddles. Maya's heart tightened, not because they were approaching her, because she realized what must have happened. The dogs had found something. Somewhere beyond the police perimeter, beyond the assumptions and accusations, they had discovered a clue. The larger shepherd reached Maya first. Instead of showing aggression, he slowed instantly and pressed against her shoulder. The second dog mirrored the movement on her other side. The entire parking lot fell silent. No barking. No growling. Just the soft sound of rainwater dripping from car mirrors and distant thunder rolling across the North Carolina sky. Officer Harper stared. One officer lowered his hand from his radio. Another exchanged a confused glance with his partner. The dog sat perfectly still beside Maya, their alert eyes scanning the darkness beyond the crowd. It wasn't affection that caught Harper's attention. It was discipline. The kind of discipline only found in elite search and rescue animals. Maya slowly opened her eyes. The shepherd nudged her arm once. A signal. A familiar one. Her pulse quickened. The dog wasn't seeking comfort. He was delivering information. "Officer," Maya said quietly. Nobody answered. "Officer Harper." This time the veteran detective looked directly at her. Rainwater glistened along the brim of his hat. "Your dogs found something, didn't they?" she asked. Harper frowned. "My dogs." Maya looked at the shepherd beside her. "They're not yours anymore." A murmur spread through the crowd. Harper's expression hardened with confusion. The shepherd stood and turned toward the tree line bordering the parking lot. His ears lifted. His body became rigid. Then the second dog did exactly the same thing. Every officer noticed it. Every officer felt it. Something was waiting out there in the darkness. Something important enough to pull 2 highly trained K9s away from flashing lights, police commands, and a crowded arrest scene. Maya followed their gaze toward the woods. For the first time all night, uncertainty shifted away from her and settled over everyone else. And somewhere beyond the trees, hidden beneath the fading storm clouds, the truth was finally beginning to surface. 12 hours earlier, the morning sun spilled across the training field behind Carolina Search and Rescue, painting long golden streaks over 5 acres of open grass. Maya Brooks stood near a row of orange markers, a whistle hanging from a cord around her neck and a clipboard tucked beneath one arm. The air smelled of pine trees and damp earth from a storm that had passed during the night. Across the field, 2 German shepherds waited with intense focus, their ears forward, their bodies still except for the slow rise and fall of their breathing. Maya checked her watch. 7:43 in the morning. Right on schedule. "Search," she called. The dogs launched forward immediately, moving through the field with practiced precision. Volunteers watched from the sidelines while a handful of local families gathered near the fence. Some had come simply to observe. Others hoped to learn how search dogs helped find missing people when every minute mattered. Maya smiled as the shepherds disappeared behind a cluster of trees. She loved these quiet mornings. No cameras. No headlines. No assumptions. Just work that mattered. For nearly 8 years, she had trained rescue dogs throughout North Carolina. She was not wealthy. She did not own a large house. Her pickup truck had more than 180,000 miles on it, and her boots showed the wear of countless miles through forests, creeks, and hiking trails. But she believed every life was worth searching for. Every family deserved hope. A young boy standing beside the fence tugged on his father's sleeve. "Miss Brooks," he called. Maya turned. "Yes, buddy." The boy pointed toward the woods. "How do they always know where to go?" A soft laugh escaped her. "They do not always know. They trust their training. Then they trust their noses. After that, they trust each other." The boy nodded seriously as if she had revealed a great secret. 20 minutes later, the dogs returned carrying a training pouch hidden nearly a quarter-mile away. Applause spread across the field. Maya knelt and rewarded both dogs with praise and treats. Their tails wagged, but only briefly. Even during celebration, they remained focused. That discipline was what made them exceptional. Her phone vibrated inside her jacket pocket. She glanced at the screen. An emergency alert from the county sheriff's office. Missing juvenile. Female. Age 12. Last seen near a wooded trail outside town. Maya's smile faded instantly. Around her, the sounds of the training field seemed to grow quieter. She opened the details and read every line carefully. The girl had disappeared less than 2 hours earlier. Search teams were already mobilizing. Maya looked toward the woods where her dogs stood waiting. She knew what came next. Within 15 minutes, equipment was packed. Volunteers loaded supplies into vehicles. The easy rhythm of the morning transformed into purposeful urgency. As Maya secured gear in the truck bed, an elderly volunteer named Ruth approached. "You think they will find her?" Maya paused before answering. The question never became easier. "I think we will do everything possible." Ruth nodded. That answer seemed enough. Clouds drifted slowly across the bright sky as Maya climbed into the driver's seat. The shepherds settled into their compartments behind her. The engine started with a familiar rumble. She glanced once more at the alert on her phone. A photograph of a smiling 12-year-old girl stared back at her. Maya whispered a quiet promise. Then she pulled onto the highway. She had no way of knowing that before the day ended, the search would place her directly in the path of suspicion. She did not know officers would question her actions. She did not know flashing lights would eventually surround her in a crowded parking lot. All she knew was that somewhere a frightened family was waiting for answers. And if there was even the smallest chance her dogs could help bring their daughter home, she intended to take it. By late morning, the search operation stretched across nearly 3 square miles of wooded terrain outside Fairview County. Patrol vehicles lined the gravel access road. Volunteers moved through assigned sectors carrying radios, water packs, and maps protected inside clear plastic sleeves. The temperature had climbed to almost 80 degrees, and the humidity hung heavy beneath the thick canopy of pine and oak trees. Maya parked beside the command trailer and stepped out into the growing activity. The missing girl's photograph was taped to nearly every vehicle. Her bright smile seemed painfully out of place against the tension surrounding the search. The two shepherds exited their compartments and immediately became alert. Their posture changed whenever real searches began. Playfulness disappeared. Purpose took over. Maya clipped tracking leads onto their harnesses and approached the operations table where county personnel reviewed search grids. That was when she first noticed Officer Daniel Harper. He stood near the center of the group, broad-shouldered and composed, studying a map spread across the hood of a patrol SUV. His silver-streaked hair caught the sunlight, while his eyes moved from one sector to another with practiced concentration. Unlike many officers Maya had worked beside during previous searches, Harper did not waste words. He listened more than he spoke. Yet there was something guarded about him. Something that suggested trust was not given easily. "Miss Brooks?" one deputy called. Maya stepped closer. "That is me." The deputy pointed toward a shaded section of forest west of the main trail. Witnesses reported seeing someone matching the girl's description near Creek Road around 8 this morning. "We want your dogs to start there." Maya nodded. "Understood." Harper finally looked up from the map. His gaze shifted briefly toward the dogs. "Those are the same shepherds from the flood rescue last year." Maya recognized the question immediately. "Atlas and Ranger." Harper nodded once. "Good dogs." It was not exactly praise, but it was enough. Within minutes, Maya and the shepherds entered the woods. The sounds of vehicles faded behind them. Leaves rustled overhead. Cicadas hummed from hidden branches. Sunlight filtered through the trees in scattered patches that moved gently with the breeze. Atlas lowered his nose toward the ground. Ranger moved slightly wider, searching for scent disturbance. Maya followed quietly, allowing them room to work. Nearly an hour passed without significant results. Then Atlas suddenly stopped. His body stiffened. Ranger immediately mirrored the reaction. Maya crouched beside them. Half hidden beneath a fallen log rested a small purple backpack. Her pulse quickened. The photograph from the alert flashed through her mind. The backpack matched the one the missing girl had carried in the picture. Maya radioed command. Possible evidence located. West Sector. Requesting response team. Her voice remained calm, but her heart beat faster. Within 20 minutes, deputies arrived. Harper was among them. The officers carefully documented the scene while Maya stood back with the dogs. The backpack contained school supplies, a water bottle, and a notebook. Nothing immediately alarming. Yet its location raised questions. Harper examined the surrounding area closely. Then his attention settled on a set of tire impressions visible near an abandoned service road. His expression changed. The easy cooperation that had existed all morning seemed to tighten into something more cautious. A deputy approached carrying a clipboard. Witness from a nearby gas station reported seeing a dark pickup truck near Creek Road around the same time. Harper glanced toward Maya's vehicle parked miles away at the command area. What kind of pickup, he asked. The deputy checked his notes. Dark blue. Harper said nothing. Neither did Maya. But she felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere. One that had nothing to do with the weather. By mid-afternoon, additional witness statements arrived. Some were helpful. Others contradicted one another. Confusion began spreading through the investigation. Yet one detail appeared repeatedly. A dark blue pickup. Maya continued searching, unaware that pieces of incomplete information were slowly forming a picture that pointed directly toward her. And while she focused on finding a missing child, suspicion was quietly beginning to find her instead. The afternoon sky darkened as thick clouds gathered over Fairview County. What had started as a bright summer day now carried the heavy feeling of an approaching storm. Maya moved carefully through a narrow section of woodland less than half a mile from the abandoned service road. Atlas and Ranger worked several yards ahead, weaving between trees with steady determination. Every few minutes they paused, tested the air, and continued forward. Maya trusted them completely. Their instincts had guided dozens of successful searches over the years. The radio clipped to her vest crackled with overlapping voices from command. New reports were coming in. Additional witnesses. Possible sightings. Conflicting timelines. The search was becoming more complicated by the hour. Maya stopped near a shallow creek and checked her map. Water trickled over smooth stones beneath a fallen tree. The peaceful sound felt strangely disconnected from the growing tension surrounding the investigation. Atlas suddenly froze. Ranger did the same. Both dogs focused toward a cluster of thick brush near the creek bank. Maya's pulse quickened. She stepped forward slowly. Hidden beneath tangled branches sat a small silver bracelet. Mud covered part of the surface, but one detail remained visible. Tiny purple beads. The same color shown in the missing girl's school photograph. Maya immediately radioed the discovery. Possible personal item located near Creek Road sector. Requesting evidence team. The response came quickly. Remain on site. Officers are en route. Maya waited beside the creek while the dogs sat quietly near her boots. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The first cool gust of wind swept through the trees. 20 minutes later, several vehicles arrived. Officer Harper stepped out first. His expression was more serious than before. Two investigators followed behind him carrying evidence kits. Maya pointed toward the bracelet. Atlas found it near the water. Harper nodded but said very little. While the investigators documented the scene, Maya noticed something unusual. The conversations among the officers seemed quieter whenever she approached. Several exchanged glances before looking away. The atmosphere felt different from earlier. Less collaborative. More cautious. One investigator walked over carrying a clear evidence bag. Witness from a convenience store identified a woman matching your description, he said. Maya frowned. My description? The investigator hesitated before answering. The witness claims they saw a woman with two large dogs speaking to the missing girl this morning. Maya stared at him. That cannot be right. Harper folded his arms. Can anyone verify your location before arriving at the search site? Maya blinked. The question caught her off guard. I was conducting training exercises with volunteers all morning. Names? Harper asked. Maya listed them immediately. Harper nodded, but wrote something down without revealing his thoughts. Rain began, falling moments later. Light drops at first, then a steady shower. Officers covered equipment while investigators secured evidence. Maya stood beneath the dripping branches, trying to understand how the situation had shifted so quickly. She had spent the entire day helping the search effort. Yet now every question seemed directed toward her. Every answer felt weighed against something she could not see. An hour later, the rain intensified. Search operations temporarily paused while command reviewed incoming information. Maya returned to the staging area and found several volunteers loading supplies into trailers. Conversations stopped as she approached, not because they distrusted her, because rumors had already started spreading. She could see it in their eyes. Confusion, concern, uncertainty. Her phone vibrated. A message from Ruth appeared on the screen. Are you okay? People are talking. Maya stared at the words for several seconds before slipping the phone back into her pocket. Across the parking area, Harper stood beside a patrol vehicle speaking with another detective. The detective handed him a folder. Harper opened it slowly. His eyes scanned the contents. Then he looked directly toward Maya. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Neither moved. Rainwater rolled down the windows of nearby vehicles. Wind rattled loose branches overhead. Something had changed inside that folder. Something significant. Harper closed it carefully and walked toward her. His boots splashed through shallow puddles with each step. When he finally stopped a few feet away, his expression remained controlled, professional, unreadable. Miss Brooks, he said quietly, I need you to come with us. The rain continued falling as silence settled between them. And for the first time that day, Maya realized she was no longer being treated as part of the search. Maya did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She simply looked at Officer Harper while rain tapped softly against the roofs of the vehicles surrounding them. For a moment, she thought there had to be some misunderstanding. The search was still active. A child was still missing. Every minute mattered. Yet the expressions on the faces around her told a different story. Harper opened the rear door of an unmarked SUV. This is not an arrest, he said. We just need answers. Maya glanced toward Atlas and Ranger resting inside their transport compartments. My dogs stay with me. Harper hesitated. They will remain at the staging area until we sort this out. Maya's jaw tightened slightly. Not from anger. From concern. The dogs had been tracking an active scent trail all afternoon. Taking them away from the search felt wrong. But she climbed into the vehicle without resistance. The drive to the Sheriff's Operations Center lasted less than 20 minutes. Rain streaked across the windows. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement in long ribbons of gold and white. Nobody spoke much during the trip. The silence felt heavier than any accusation. Inside the operations building, Maya sat at a plain metal table beneath bright fluorescent lights. A paper cup of water rested beside her. Across from her sat Harper and another detective named Linda Morales. A file folder lay open between them. Maya noticed photographs clipped inside. Maps, statements, printed reports, pieces of a story she had not seen. Morales slid a document across the table. A witness identified your truck near Creek Road shortly before the girl disappeared. Maya looked at the report. I was conducting training exercises. We know that, Morales said calmly. But another witness claims they saw you speaking with the girl. Maya shook her head immediately. That never happened. Harper leaned forward. Miss Brooks, understand something. We are trying to find a missing child. We cannot ignore information simply because it is inconvenient. Maya met his gaze. And I cannot admit to something that is not true. The room fell quiet again. Hours passed. Additional questions followed. Where had she stopped that morning? Which roads had she traveled? Who had seen her? Maya answered everything carefully, truthfully, consistently. Yet each answer seemed to uncover another concern, another coincidence, another detail that pointed in the wrong direction. By early evening, the storm had intensified. Wind rattled the windows. Search crews remained active despite worsening weather. Then another report arrived. A dark blue pickup matching Maya's vehicle had been captured on a security camera less than a mile from where the backpack was discovered. Harper studied the image. The photograph was grainy, unclear, but close enough to deepen suspicion. Maya closed her eyes briefly. She could feel the investigation drifting farther away from facts and closer to assumptions. At 7:30 that evening, Harper finally stood. His face looked exhausted. The long day had worn down everyone involved. "We are taking you back to the search perimeter while we continue verifying information." Maya nodded. She rose from the chair and followed the officers outside. Rain had finally begun to ease. Thick clouds still covered the sky, but the downpour had weakened to a steady drizzle. As they returned to the parking lot near the active search zone, Maya immediately sensed something had changed. More vehicles had arrived. Additional officers stood near the perimeter. News crews waited behind temporary barriers. Word had spread. Cameras pointed toward the scene. Rumors had grown larger than evidence. Maya stepped from the SUV and felt dozens of eyes settle on her. Some curious, some skeptical, some already convinced they knew the truth. Harper spoke quietly into his radio. Moments later, several officers approached. Procedure. Precaution. Nothing more. Yet the sight of uniforms closing in created an image that cameras eagerly captured. Maya stood still beneath the flashing lights. Her shoulders remained straight. Her breathing remained steady. Somewhere beyond the parking lot, search teams continued looking for a missing child. Somewhere in the darkness, Atlas and Ranger remained inside their transport units. Then a sharp voice crackled across a radio channel. One officer glanced toward the tree line. Another turned toward the road leading away from the staging area. Confusion flickered across several faces. Maya noticed it immediately. Something unexpected had happened. Something nobody at the command post had anticipated. And a few hundred yards away, hidden beyond the lights and the gathered crowd, two highly trained shepherds had just broken through a secured gate and were running directly toward the parking lot. The parking lot seemed to hold its breath. Rainwater shimmered beneath flashing emergency lights, turning the wet asphalt into a mirror of red, blue, and white reflections. Maya stood motionless as officers formed a cautious perimeter around her. Beyond the barriers, reporters shifted for a better view. Camera lenses glinted beneath portable floodlights. The storm had weakened, but the air still carried the scent of wet pine and distant thunder. Then came the sound. Fast, rhythmic, unmistakable. Paws striking pavement. Several officers turned at once. Others instinctively stepped aside. The noise grew louder with every second. Maya felt her heart tighten. Not with fear, with recognition. Atlas appeared first. The large shepherd emerged from the darkness beyond the staging area fence, moving with powerful determination. Ranger followed only a few feet behind. Neither dog looked confused. Neither looked frightened. Their focus was absolute. A deputy reached for his radio. Another officer called out a warning. Yet the dogs ignored every voice. They ran directly through the center of the parking lot toward Maya. The gathered crowd fell silent. Even the reporters stopped speaking. Atlas reached her first. Instead of showing agitation, he pressed against her side and sat immediately. Ranger mirrored the movement on her other side. Both dogs faced the tree line beyond the parking lot. Their ears remained forward. Their bodies tense. Alert. Waiting. Maya looked down at them. Water dripped from their coats. Mud clung to their paws. Something about their posture felt familiar. Very familiar. Harper noticed it too. He slowly stepped closer. "What are they doing?" he asked. Maya never took her eyes off the dogs. "They are trying to tell us something." The words hung in the damp evening air. Atlas shifted slightly. Ranger stood and turned his head toward the wooded area bordering the highway. Then he looked back at Maya. Then toward the woods again. The movement repeated. Precise. Deliberate. Maya's pulse quickened. She had seen this behavior before during dozens of search operations. This was not excitement. It was communication. Atlas suddenly took several steps forward before stopping and looking back. Ranger followed. Then both dogs waited. Harper frowned. "What does that mean?" Maya answered quietly. "It means they want us to follow them." Several officers exchanged uncertain glances. The idea sounded almost impossible. Yet nobody could ignore what they were seeing. These were not ordinary pets. These were highly trained search animals with years of documented success. The dogs had broken free from their secured area. They had crossed active search zones. They had ignored every distraction. And now they appeared to be leading investigators somewhere. A long silence settled across the parking lot. Rain tapped softly against patrol vehicle roofs. Somewhere beyond the trees, a distant siren echoed across the county. Harper stared at the shepherds. Maya could almost see the conflict in his eyes. Procedure demanded caution. Experience demanded attention. Finally, Atlas moved again. This time he carried something in his mouth. A small object coated in mud. He placed it carefully at Maya's feet. Every officer nearby leaned forward. Harper knelt and examined it under a flashlight. The beam reflected off silver metal. A keychain. Attached to it was a faded logo from a local landscaping company. Harper's expression changed immediately. One of the deputies inhaled sharply. "That belongs to Travis Mercer," the deputy said. "The contractor we interviewed this afternoon." Harper looked up. The one who claimed he never left his work site. The deputy nodded. Maya remained silent. Atlas and Ranger stood waiting. Their eyes stayed fixed on the darkness beyond the highway. Harper slowly rose to his feet. For the first time all day, uncertainty shifted away from Maya. The evidence everyone had been chasing seemed to be pointing somewhere else. Somewhere the dogs had already discovered. The crowd behind the barriers sensed the change even if they did not understand it. Reporters lowered their microphones. Officers stopped looking at Maya and started looking toward the woods. Atlas took several more steps forward. Ranger followed. Then both. Shepherds paused and waited again. Not impatiently, not nervously, confidently, as if they already knew exactly where the truth was hiding and simply expected the humans to catch up. Officer Harper did not hesitate this time. The moment he recognized the keychain, he turned toward the command vehicle and issued a series of rapid instructions through his radio. Deputies moved immediately. Maps were pulled from dashboards. Flashlights swept across the edge of the tree line. The atmosphere in the parking lot transformed in seconds. What had been suspicion now became urgency. Atlas started forward. Ranger followed. The dogs moved with purpose, weaving through wet grass beside the highway access road. Harper looked toward Maya. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Then he gave a small nod. It was not an apology. Not yet. But it was the first sign that he no longer viewed her as the center of the investigation. "Come with us," he said. Maya clipped the tracking leads onto both shepherds and followed the search team into the darkness. Rain continued falling lightly through the branches overhead. Water dripped from leaves. Mud softened the narrow trail beneath their boots. Portable searchlights cast pale beams through the woods, while radio chatter echoed between the trees. Atlas remained several yards ahead. Ranger worked slightly wider to the right. Every movement they made looked deliberate, controlled, confident. Nearly 20 minutes passed before the terrain changed. The forest opened into a neglected service area hidden behind thick undergrowth. An old maintenance shed stood near the edge of a clearing. Its paint had faded years ago. One side of the roof sagged beneath accumulated weather damage. Harper studied the scene carefully. "This property belongs to the county?" he asked. A deputy checked records on a tablet. "No. Private lease agreement. Landscaping company storage site." Harper's eyes narrowed immediately. The same company whose logo appeared on the keychain. Atlas suddenly accelerated. Ranger followed. Both dogs headed directly toward the far side of the clearing. Searchlights swung in the same direction. Then someone shouted. Not in alarm. In relief. Every person in the clearing froze. Another voice called out from beyond the shed. This time the words carried clearly through the night air. "We found her." The tension that had gripped the search for hours seemed to break all at once. Deputies rushed toward the location. Harper moved quickly through the wet grass. Maya followed several steps behind. Hidden beneath a covered section of the old structure sat the missing 12-year-old girl. She appeared frightened and exhausted, but safe. A blanket was immediately wrapped around her shoulders. Medical personnel moved in carefully. Questions could wait. Her well-being came first. Maya felt her chest loosen for the first time all day. Atlas sat beside the girl. Ranger remained close by. Neither dog barked. Neither sought attention. They simply stayed near the child they had helped locate. Harper knelt a short distance away while paramedics conducted their evaluation. The missing pieces of the story began falling into place quickly. Investigators discovered that the landscaping contractor, Travis Mercer, had provided inaccurate statements during questioning. His reported timeline did not match security footage recovered from nearby businesses. Additional evidence linked his vehicle to locations connected to the search. More importantly, none of that evidence connected Maya to the disappearance. Not a single piece. The witness descriptions had been incomplete. The vehicle identification had been flawed. Assumptions had filled the gaps where facts were missing. Harper stood slowly beneath the beam of a searchlight. Rain glistened across his jacket. He looked toward Maya, then toward Atlas and Ranger. The dogs had solved what dozens of investigators, cameras, reports, and assumptions could not. A deputy approached carrying updated information from command. Harper listened silently. When the deputy finished speaking, he closed his eyes for a brief moment. The realization settled heavily across his face. Maya had spent the entire day helping them. She had found the backpack. She had found the bracelet. Her dogs had found the final lead. Yet somewhere along the way, suspicion had overshadowed evidence. The searchlights reflected across the wet clearing as officers continued documenting the scene. Nearby, the missing girl's parents arrived and rushed toward their daughter. Tears mixed with rain beneath the glow of portable flood lamps. Maya looked away to give the family privacy. Atlas leaned gently against her leg. Ranger settled beside him. Behind them, Officer Harper remained motionless for several seconds, staring at the two shepherds who had quietly exposed the truth and changed the course of the entire investigation. The rain finally stopped sometime after midnight. Clouds drifted apart above the clearing, revealing scattered stars across the North Carolina sky. Emergency lights still flashed in the distance, but their urgency had faded. The missing girl sat safely inside a medical vehicle with her parents nearby. Search teams began packing equipment. Radios grew quieter. The long day was finally coming to an end. Maya stood near the edge of the clearing beside Atlas and Ranger. Both dogs looked exhausted. Mud covered their legs. Their breathing had slowed to a steady rhythm after hours of work. She knelt and gently rubbed behind Atlas's ears. The shepherd leaned into her hand for a moment before settling back onto the grass. It was the first peaceful moment she had experienced all day. Footsteps approached from behind. Maya turned and saw Officer Harper walking toward her alone. The floodlights cast soft shadows across his face. He looked older now than he had that morning. Not physically, emotionally, like the weight of the day had finally settled on his shoulders. For several seconds he said nothing. He simply looked at the dogs, then at Maya, then back toward the activity surrounding the recovered child. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. The words seemed difficult for him to say. Maya remained silent. Harper removed his hat and held it in one hand. "Not because your dogs found the final lead," he continued, "and not because the evidence cleared you." He paused and looked toward the ground. "Because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing the facts and started seeing a theory." A cool breeze moved through the clearing. The scent of wet pine drifted between them. Maya listened without interrupting. Harper took a slow breath. "You spent the entire day helping us. Every discovery moved the search forward. Yet when the pressure increased, I let assumptions fill gaps that should have remained unanswered until we had proof." Maya looked toward Atlas and Ranger. "The hardest part about search work is that people become desperate." Harper nodded. "Desperation is not an excuse." Silence settled again. Nearby, deputies loaded equipment into trucks. Searchlights were being dismantled one by one. The clearing slowly grew darker. Harper finally looked directly at her. "I should have trusted the evidence more than the rumors." Maya studied his expression. For the first time all day, she saw something absent from every earlier conversation. Humility. Not the kind people perform for cameras. The real kind. The uncomfortable kind. The kind that requires admitting mistakes without defending them. She stood and brushed mud from her jacket. "The girl is safe." Harper frowned slightly. "That is all you were going to say?" A faint smile touched Maya's face. "That was the job." Harper stared at her for a moment before letting out a quiet laugh. Not because anything was funny. Because he had expected anger. Resentment. A lecture. Instead he found grace. The very thing he had failed to offer her. A deputy approached carrying a folder. "Press is asking for a statement." Harper glanced toward the parking area where reporters still waited beneath portable lights. "Tell them the search team located the child safely." The deputy nodded. "Should we mention the dogs?" Harper looked at Atlas and Ranger. "Mention everyone who helped." The deputy walked away. Maya clipped fresh leads onto the shepherds. They were ready to go home. As she prepared to leave, Harper stopped her once more. "Miss Brooks." She turned. "The county is establishing a new search and rescue advisory program next month. We need someone who understands this work." Maya raised an eyebrow. Harper continued. "Someone who understands what the dogs understand. Follow the evidence, not assumptions." Maya glanced toward the sleeping shepherds, then toward the family embracing their daughter beneath the fading lights. The long day had taken much from everyone involved, but it had also revealed something important. Truth did not need the loudest voice. It only needed someone willing to follow it. "I will think about it," she said. Harper nodded. This time the silence between them felt different. Not heavy, not uncertain, simply honest. 3 weeks later, autumn arrived quietly across Fairview County. The heavy heat of summer had faded, replaced by cool mornings and long stretches of golden sunlight. Leaves drifted from maple trees lining the county roads, gathering along fences and sidewalks in rust-colored waves. Maya Brooks stood near the same training field where the story had begun. The grass shimmered with dew beneath the early morning sun. Atlas and Ranger moved through a routine exercise several hundred feet away, their dark silhouettes crossing the open field with effortless confidence. The world felt different now. Not because recognition had come. Not because local newspapers had published photographs of the successful search. Not because county officials had publicly acknowledged the role she and her dogs played. Those things mattered far less than people assumed. What mattered was the little girl who was now back in school. What mattered was a family that slept peacefully again. What mattered was that truth had eventually found its way through noise, assumptions, and fear. A gentle breeze brushed across the field. Maya closed her eyes for a moment and listened. The distant hum of traffic, birds calling from the trees, the soft rustle of grass moving beneath the wind. Ordinary sounds. The kind people rarely notice until life reminds them how valuable ordinary days can be. Behind her, a pickup truck rolled slowly into the gravel parking area. Maya opened her eyes and glanced over her shoulder. Officer Harper stepped out carrying a cardboard box beneath one arm. Atlas noticed him first. The shepherd lifted his head but remained exactly where he was. Ranger did the same. Harper smiled. Still the most disciplined dogs in the county. Maya laughed softly. Do not tell them that. They already think highly of themselves. Harper walked closer and placed the box on a nearby picnic table. Inside were framed photographs from the search operation, certificates from the county commission, and several letters written by community members. One envelope stood out from the rest. It was covered with colorful markers and uneven handwriting. Maya opened it carefully. The letter came from the 12-year-old girl. It was simple, honest, childlike. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for your dogs. Thank you for helping everyone find me. Maya read the words twice before folding the paper carefully and placing it back inside the envelope. No certificate carried the same weight. No public recognition ever could. Harper stood quietly beside her. The silence felt comfortable now. Neither person needed to explain what had happened. Both remembered. Both had learned something from it. The advisory program starts next month, Harper said eventually. Maya smiled. I remember. The position is still yours if you want it. She looked across the field where Atlas and Ranger continued working beneath the morning sun. Their shadows stretched long across the grass. I will accept. Harper nodded. No speeches followed. No dramatic handshake. Just mutual understanding. The kind built through difficult lessons and honest reflection. A flock of birds lifted from the tree line and crossed the sky overhead. Maya watched them disappear beyond the horizon. Nearby, Atlas finished his exercise and trotted back toward her. Ranger followed close behind. Both dogs sat at her feet, calm and content. Harper looked at them and shook his head with quiet admiration. They never stopped believing they were right. Maya rested a hand on Atlas's shoulder. That is because they were never distracted by appearances. The breeze carried fallen leaves across the field. Somewhere in the distance, church bells marked the beginning of a new hour. Harper glanced toward the road before returning to his truck. Maya remained where she was. Atlas sat on one side. Ranger rested on the other. The sunlight grew warmer as the morning continued. No cameras were present. No reporters. No flashing lights. Just a woman, 2 loyal dogs, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that kindness had survived suspicion, truth had survived assumption, and dignity had survived judgment. The field remained silent long after Harper drove away. And in that silence, beneath the golden light of a new day, justice felt less like a victory and more like peace.